20 things gone forever from the 1950s to 1960s. Step back in time to an era of soda fountains, rabbit-ear TVs, and banana seat bikes. Once essential to everyday life, these icons of the 1950s and 1960s have vanished, leaving only memories behind. Join us as we revisit 20 things that defined a generation, now lost to history. X-ray shoe fitting machine. Back in the mid-20th century, a trip to the shoe store wasn't just about trying on new footwear. It was a high-tech experience. One of the most fascinating and now long-gone inventions of that era was the X-ray shoe fitting machine, also called the fluoroscope. These machines, which first appeared in the 1930s and remained popular through the early 1950s, promised to revolutionize the way people bought shoes. Advertisements hailed them as a scientific breakthrough, allowing customers, especially children, to see their own foot bones inside a new pair of shoes. The idea was that by checking the fit down to the bone, parents could ensure a proper, long-lasting fit, making the shoes more comfortable and durable. At the time, no one fully understood the dangers of radiation exposure. These machines emitted dangerous levels of radiation, and by the early 1950s, medical experts started to sound the alarm. Reports linked prolonged exposure to serious health risks, raising concerns among manufacturers, shoe store owners, and state regulators. As the risks became undeniable, states began banning them, and retailers quietly removed them from their stores. Hand-washed laundry and clotheslines. In the 1950s, doing laundry was a full-day affair, and for many families, it was still a labor-intensive process. While washing machines were available, they were considered a luxury item, not yet a common household appliance. Instead, many people relied on old-fashioned methods, scrubbing clothes by hand using a washboard and a sink full of soapy water. After washing, the next challenge was removing excess moisture. This was done with a wringer, a hand-cranked device that squeezed water out of the fabric before the clothes were ready to be dried. Once wrung out, clothes weren't tossed into a dryer. They were taken outside to dry on a clothesline. Almost every backyard had a sturdy line strung between poles where garments were clipped with wooden clothespins and left to dry in the sun and fresh air. But laundry didn't stop there. Ironing was an essential step. Wrinkle-free clothes were a mark of a well-kept household, so housewives often spent hours pressing shirts, dresses, and linens until they were crisp and neat. Manual telephone switchboards. Back in the early 1950s, making a phone call wasn't as simple as dialing a number. Instead of direct connections, telephone switchboards and live operators were essential to linking callers. When someone picked up their phone, a small light on the switchboard would flash, signaling the operator to step in. She would then plug in a pair of cords, manually completing the circuit that connected the call. This system allowed the operator to participate in the call, often asking for the name or number of the person being contacted before making the connection. This hands-on approach to communication was a staple of daily life, but technology was advancing fast. Throughout the 1950s, phone companies gradually phased out manual switchboards in favor of self-service rotary, dial phones. These devices gave users the ability to dial numbers directly, eliminating the need for an operator to handle routine calls. By the end of the decade, switchboard operators were no longer a common sight, and homes across America had embraced the convenience of dialing numbers themselves. Twin-lens reflex camera. From the 1920s to the 1950s, one type of camera ruled the world of roll film photography, the twin-lens reflex camera, or TLR. Just about every major camera manufacturer produced a version of it, making it a familiar sight in households and photography studios alike. The TLR was unique because of its dual lens setup, with one lens positioned directly above the other. The top lens functioned as a viewfinder, allowing photographers to see the scene they were capturing, while the bottom lens actually took the photo. A 45-degree mirror inside the camera bounced the image up to the viewfinder, creating a reflex effect that gave the camera its name. For many families, the TLR was more than just a tool. It was a cherished possession. Fathers often used it to document family milestones, capturing birthdays, holidays, and vacations in rich detail. The design of the camera was intriguing to children, who would marvel at the way they could look down into the viewfinder and see a miniature version of the world inside. Some cameras were even handed down from parents to kids, sparking a love of photography in future generations. But as technology advanced, TLRs faded into history, replaced by smaller, more convenient cameras. Cursive writing on the blackboard. For many of us, learning cursive was a childhood milestone, a skill that felt like a rite of passage as we moved into the 3rd grade. Standing at the front of the classroom, gripping a piece of chalk, we carefully traced out elegant, flowing letters on the blackboard, each stroke connecting in a smooth, continuous motion. It wasn't just about handwriting. It was about feeling grown up, mastering the loops and curves that made our words look polished and sophisticated. Back then, penmanship was a necessity. Writing in cursive was seen as an essential skill, one that we were expected to perfect through repetition. Teachers would correct our posture, our grip, and even the way we formed each letter, ensuring that our handwriting was neat, legible, and uniform. But as the years went by, the rise of typewriters, then computers, and finally digital communication slowly pushed cursive into the background. Today, the sight of a child practicing cursive on a blackboard is rare, if not completely gone. What's a memory from your childhood that younger generations wouldn't believe today? Let us know. Soda fountains. Few things capture the spirit of the 1950s quite like the soda fountain. These lively spots, often tucked inside drugstores or small-town diners, were more than just a place to grab a refreshing drink. They were the heart of the community. Friends gathered to share a malt, a root beer float, or a cherry cola, chatting over the counter while a soda jerk mixed up their favorite treat. Young couples flirted over milkshakes, and teenagers crowded in after school, making soda fountains a social hub for an entire generation. But as American culture shifted, soda fountains started to disappear. The rise of car culture changed how people socialized, and drive-in restaurants became the new go-to hangout. Instead of sitting inside a soda shop, teens could now cruise up to a drive-in, order from their cars, and have their food and drinks delivered right to them. At the same time, bottled sodas became widely available, making it easier to grab a six-pack at the grocery store instead of visiting a fountain. By the 1960s, these once-beloved gathering places were fading away. Encyclopedia Britannica. In the 1950s, owning a set of the Encyclopedia Britannica wasn't just about having access to knowledge. It was a symbol of prestige. These beautifully bound volumes, filled with facts on everything from world history to science, were considered an essential part of a well-educated home. But they didn't come cheap. Many families purchased them on installment plans, slowly paying off their investment over time. The books often took center stage in the living room or on a sturdy bookshelf, ready to be pulled down whenever a child had a school project or a parent wanted to settle a debate. For kids, encyclopedias were the internet of their time. If you had a question, you didn't Google it. You flipped through pages, scanned indexes, and carefully read through the detailed entries. The sight of an encyclopedia salesman going door to door was just as common as the mailman. These salesmen, often dressed in suits, carried sample copies and delivered polished sales pitches, convincing parents that an encyclopedia set was an investment in their children's future. But as time passed and technology advanced, these once revered books became obsolete, replaced by computers, CD-ROMs, and eventually, the limitless expanse of the internet. TV antennas and bunny ears. For many families in the 1950s, bringing home a brand new television set was an exciting milestone, but getting a clear picture? That was a different story. TV signals were weak and unreliable, and your ability to watch your favorite shows depended on how well you could tune in to the broadcast. This meant every television needed an antenna, and for most homes, that meant a set of bunny ears, two extendable metal rods perched on top of the TV. If reception was bad, Dad had a trick, wrapping tin foil around the bunny ears and twisting them this way and that, hoping to catch a stronger signal. If that didn't work, someone might have to stand in just the right spot, holding the antenna as the family yelled, "That's it, don't move." For better reception, some homes had large rooftop antennas, and if those needed adjusting, it sometimes meant climbing onto the roof to tweak the position. Paper road maps. Before GPS and smartphone navigation, getting to your destination was an adventure in itself. Drivers didn't have turn-by-turn directions at their fingertips. Instead, they had to rely on paper road maps, which meant extra planning, sharp memory, and sometimes a whole lot of guesswork. If you were taking a road trip, chances were that a large folded map was your best co-pilot. But using one wasn't always easy. First, you had to figure out the route before you hit the road, marking highways and key turns. If you needed to check directions while driving, you better not be alone. Trying to unfold and read a massive map behind the wheel was not only distracting, but downright dangerous. A passenger was usually in charge of navigating, scanning the fine print for exit numbers and adjusting directions on the fly. And then there was the infamous folding problem. Once a map was fully opened, getting it back into its original shape was a near impossible task. Many people gave up, stuffing their maps into the glove compartment as a crumpled mess. While paper maps were a necessity for decades, they became a relic of the past once GPS took over, forever changing the way we travel. Cars without seat belts. The 1950s were the golden age of the American automobile, a time when sleek, chrome-covered cars ruled the roads. But while these classic cars were known for their style and power, they were missing something we take for granted. Today, seat belts. For most of the decade, cars were sold without any restraints, leaving drivers and passengers completely unprotected in the event of an accident. Back then, safety wasn't a priority. Freedom and thrill were. People loved the feeling of cruising down the highway with the windows down, the wind in their hair, and nothing holding them back. Many saw seatbelts as unnecessary or even restrictive. However, as car accidents became more frequent and deadly, researchers and automakers started studying ways to make driving safer. Early tests showed that seatbelts significantly reduced injuries, but convincing the public to use them was another story. It wasn't until the late 1950s and early 1960s that manufacturers began offering seatbelts as optional features, and by the mid-1960s, laws started making them mandatory. While classic car lovers still admire the open, unrestricted feel of 1950s automobiles, there's no denying that seatbelts helped change driving forever, saving countless lives in the decades to come. Patio Diet Cola. Back in 1963, the diet soda craze was just beginning, and Pepsi was eager to jump in. Their first attempt? Patio Diet Cola, a name meant to capture the feeling of relaxing in the shade on a hot summer day. While it was essentially Diet Pepsi in disguise, Pepsi wanted to test the waters with a different name before fully committing. For that first year, Patio wasn't just about cola. Pepsi introduced a variety of flavors, including grape, orange, and root beer, hoping to attract a broad audience of soda lovers looking for a sugar-free option. To promote the drink, they even enlisted fitness guru Debbie Drake, a well-known TV personality, to pitch it as a health-conscious choice. A bold move in an era when most soft drinks were all about indulgence, not dieting. However, by 1964, Pepsi decided to ditch the Patio branding and fully embrace the name that would become a household staple, Diet Pepsi. Fizzies. In the late 1950s, Fizzies hit the market as a fun and futuristic way to enjoy a fizzy, fruit-flavored drink. No soda bottle required. These effervescent tablets, created by the Emerson Drug Company, were dropped into a glass of water, instantly carbonating the liquid and adding a burst of flavor. It was like science meets soda, and kids absolutely loved watching the tablets fizz and bubble as they dissolved. By the mid-1960s, Fizzies had become a huge success, even outselling Kool-Aid at one point. Parents appreciated the fact that the drink was sugar-free, and it seemed like a healthier alternative to traditional sodas. But the product had a major flaw. The sweetener it relied on, cyclamate, was later banned in 1969 due to health concerns. Without its key ingredient, Fizzies lost its appeal. Mercurochrome. If you grew up in the 1960s, chances are you remember Mercurochrome, the dark pink antiseptic that found its way onto every cut, scrape, and bruise. It was a staple in medicine cabinets across America, instantly recognizable by its vivid red stain and distinct medicinal smell. Parents swore by it, and kids dreaded it, not just because of the sting, but because once it touched your skin, it left behind a stubborn pinkish-orange mark that made it obvious you'd been patched up. For decades, Mercurochrome was the go-to antiseptic, used without question for everything from skinned knees to minor burns. But there was one big problem. It contained mercury, a substance that, over time, was discovered to have potential health risks. By the 1990s, the FDA decided not to classify it as generally recognized as safe and effective, effectively pushing it out of the market. Uncle Milton's Ant Farm. If you were a kid growing up in 1960s America, there's a good chance you either owned or desperately wanted Uncle Milton's Ant Farm. This simple yet fascinating toy captivated young minds, offering a tiny window into the underground world of ants. First launched in the late 1950s, the Ant Farm exploded in popularity during the 1960s, heavily advertised in comic books and magazines, and quickly becoming a must-have item for curious kids. Buying an ant farm was only half the experience. The real excitement came later. Once you had the plastic and glass habitat in hand, you had to mail away for your ants, eagerly waiting weeks for a vial of 25 worker ants to arrive by mail. Once introduced to their new home, the ants would dig intricate tunnels, creating a mesmerizing underground network that kids could observe for hours. The local candy store. For many kids growing up in mid-century America, hanging out at the local candy store was one of the first real tastes of freedom. It was where you could spend your own money, usually a handful of coins from your piggy bank, on treats that weren't always allowed at home. Whether it was a corner store, a five and dime, or a tiny shop tucked inside a deli, these places were a paradise for kids with a sweet tooth. After school, kids flocked to the candy store in groups, pockets jingling with spare change, ready to make the all-important decision: what to buy. Rows of penny candy, chocolate bars, wax bottles filled with syrupy liquid and bubble gum lined the shelves, tempting young customers to stretch their allowance as far as possible. The store clerks, often old-timers who had seen generations of kids come and go, didn't mind the loitering, as long as everyone eventually made a purchase. Parents didn't worry too much about where you were. As long as you were home in time for dinner and didn't spoil your appetite, a stop at the candy store was just another part of childhood. American Bandstand. For kids growing up in the 1960s, American Bandstand wasn't just a TV show, It was a cultural phenomenon. Hosted by Dick Clark, America's oldest teenager, it was the go-to place to discover the hottest new music and learn the latest dance moves. Every afternoon, teenagers across the country tuned in to watch young dancers show off their skills, making it feel like a nationwide dance party right in your living room. But American Bandstand was more than just dancing. It introduced audiences to some of the biggest music legends of all time. Artists like Smokey Robinson, Stevie Wonder, Sonny and Cher, and Tina Turner all made appearances, helping shape the sound of a generation. Whether it was rock and roll, Motown, or pop, if an artist made it onto American Bandstand, you knew they were on their way to stardom. The show also brought dance crazes into the mainstream. Moves like the locomotion, the mashed potato, and the twist spread across the country, with kids everywhere practicing their steps so they could keep up with the latest trends. Long before music videos and MTV, American Bandstand was where music and dance came to life, making it one of the most beloved and influential shows of its time. Did you ever experience any of these firsthand? Share your memories in the comments. Banana seat bicycles. In the 1960s, if you wanted to be the coolest kid on the block, you needed one thing: a banana seat bicycle. First introduced by Schwinn in 1963, these bikes were designed to mimic the look of chopper motorcycles, complete with high-rise handlebars and an elongated, cushioned seat. The result? A bike that wasn't just fun to ride. It was a statement piece, instantly recognizable and incredibly popular among kids. The banana seat was a game changer. Unlike the standard narrow bike seats of the past, this one was wide, padded, and comfortable, perfect for long rides, or even doubling up with a friend on the back. It gave kids the freedom to cruise sidewalks, alleys, and neighborhood streets in style. Paired with flashy colors, racing stripes, or even a sissy bar on the back, banana seat bikes were the ultimate ride of childhood adventures. Console televisions. In the 1960s, a television wasn't just a gadget. It was a centerpiece of the living room, doubling as a piece of furniture as much as an entertainment device. Unlike today's sleek wall-mounted screens, TVs back then were massive, housed in sturdy wooden cabinets that made them look more like a stylish sideboard than an electronic device. These console televisions were heavy, bulky, and built to last, with a screen that was often small compared to the oversized cabinet surrounding it. Families gathered around them every evening to catch the latest episode of The Andy Griffith Show, I Love Lucy, or The Ed Sullivan Show, as long as the rabbit ear antenna was adjusted just right. If reception was fuzzy, it usually meant someone had to fiddle with the dials or reposition the antenna, sometimes even wrapping it in tin foil to get a better signal. But a console TV wasn't just for watching programs. Its flat wooden surface provided the perfect spot for displaying family photos, decorative figurines, or even a lace doily. While modern televisions have gotten thinner and more high-tech, there's something nostalgic about the days when a TV wasn't just a screen. It was part of the furniture, part of the home, and part of the family's daily routine. The Beatles and the British invasion. When the Beatles landed in America in February 1964, they weren't just another rock band. They were the start of a musical revolution. The moment their plane touched down at New York's John F. Kennedy Airport, more than 3,000 screaming fans were there to greet them, setting off a level of hysteria never seen before. It was the beginning of what journalist Walter Cronkite dubbed the British invasion, and American teenagers couldn't get enough. Just 2 days later, the Beatles made their legendary appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show. More than 73 million people tuned in, making it one of the most watched television events of all time. Their performance electrified the audience, cementing their status as international superstars overnight. Within 2 weeks, 5 of their songs were dominating the Billboard Hot 100, including the top 2 spots, a feat never before accomplished by a single band. The Beatles weren't just changing music, they were changing fashion, culture, and the way young people expressed themselves. Their arrival in the US marked a defining moment in music history, one that those who lived through it will never forget. The British invasion had begun, and the world would never be the same. Apollo 11 and the moon landing. On July 20th, 1969, the world watched in awe as Apollo 11 achieved what had once seemed impossible, landing humans on the moon. It had been just 8 years since President John F. Kennedy had challenged the United States to put a man on the moon before the decade was out, and now the moment had arrived. As astronaut Neil Armstrong stepped onto the lunar surface, his words became instantly immortalized. "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." For those who witnessed it live on television, it was the most incredible event of their lifetime. An estimated 600 million people worldwide tuned in, gathered around their TV sets, holding their breath as grainy black and white footage showed Armstrong and fellow astronaut Buzz Aldrin moving across the moon's surface. It was a moment of pure triumph, proving that human ingenuity and perseverance could conquer even the most impossible frontiers. Top 20 Television shows of the 1950s. Step into the world of 1950s TV, where unforgettable shows ruled the airwaves. From daring detectives to hilarious game shows, each program had its own twist. Let's dive into these iconic moments and uncover the hidden stories behind the shows that shaped a generation. Dragnet. Dragnet was one of the most groundbreaking crime dramas of its time, setting the standard for police procedurals on television. Created by and starring Jack Webb as the no-nonsense Sergeant Joe Friday, the series originally began as a popular radio program before making the leap to television. What set Dragnet apart was its meticulous attention to realism, investigated crimes, from robberies and fraud to homicides. The show's signature style, marked by its precise, clipped dialogue and deadpan delivery, helped immerse viewers in the procedural nature of police work. Jack Webb's performance as Sergeant Friday became iconic, with his famous catchphrase, "Just the facts, ma'am," becoming a cultural staple, even though he never actually said it verbatim. The show's unmistakable theme music, an ominous 4-note motif, instantly set the tone for each episode, signaling the serious and methodical approach that defined the series. Airing on NBC on Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, Dragnet captivated audiences with its stark realism and no-frills approach to crime solving, leaving a lasting legacy in television history. I've Got a Secret. I've Got a Secret was a beloved game show of the 1950s, bringing a mix of mystery, humor, and surprise to television audiences. Hosted by the charismatic Gary Moore, the show featured a panel of well-known celebrities who attempted to uncover a contestant's hidden secret through a series of yes or no questions. These secrets could be anything from amusing personal stories to remarkable achievements or rare experiences, making each episode an unpredictable and entertaining experience. One of the most unforgettable moments in the show's history came on February 8, 1956, when an elderly man named Samuel J. Seymour took the stage. His secret was nothing short of extraordinary. He had witnessed the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln at Ford's Theater on April 14, 1865. As a young boy of 5, Seymour had been present when John Wilkes Booth carried out the tragic attack, making him one of the last living eyewitnesses to the historic event. His appearance on the show was both fascinating and poignant, as it served as a living connection to one of America's most pivotal moments. Sadly, Seymour passed away shortly after his television appearance, but his story remains one of the most remarkable ever shared on I've Got a Secret. December Bride. December Bride was a delightful sitcom that brought warmth, humor, and a touch of romance to 1950s television audiences. The show centered around Lily Ruskin, a spirited and independent widow who lived with her daughter and son-in-law. Though her well-meaning friends were constantly trying to find her a new husband, Lily had other ideas. She was far more interested in enjoying life on her own terms rather than rushing into another marriage. Much of the show's comedy stemmed from Lily's witty exchanges with her close friend, Hilda Crocker, a lovable busybody who always had an opinion on Lily's love life. Adding to the laughs was their neighbor, Pete Porter, a man who never missed an opportunity to complain about his never-seen wife, Gladys. Pete became such a fan favorite that he later starred in his own spin-off, Pete and Gladys. Airing on Mondays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern on CBS, December Bride was a refreshing take on family sitcoms, offering a charming mix of lighthearted humor and relatable characters. Lily Ruskin's refusal to conform to societal expectations made her a standout character, and the show's clever writing and lovable cast ensured its place as a classic in early television history. The Millionaire. The Millionaire was a captivating and thought-provoking anthology series that aired in the 1950s, offering viewers a glimpse into the transformative power of unexpected wealth. The premise was simple, yet compelling. An anonymous billionaire, John Beresford Tipton, would select an ordinary person each week to receive an astonishing gift of $1 million, an unimaginable fortune at the time. The show followed the life-changing consequences of this windfall, exploring how each recipient handled their newfound riches and the unexpected challenges that often came with it. Unlike typical game shows or reality programs, The Millionaire was entirely scripted, with each episode presenting a self-contained drama. Viewers never saw Tipton himself, only his trusted executive secretary, Michael Anthony, who personally delivered the life-altering checks. Some beneficiaries found happiness and success, using the money wisely to fulfill their dreams, while others discovered that sudden wealth brought unforeseen troubles, from greed and jealousy to personal turmoil. By delving into the complexities of human nature, The Millionaire kept audiences engaged, sparking conversations about what they would do if faced with such an extraordinary opportunity. The show's unique premise and emotional storytelling made it a standout series of its time, leaving a lasting impression on television history. The Jack Benny Program. The Jack Benny Program was a groundbreaking television series that masterfully blended elements of sitcom, variety show, and sharp satire. Starring the legendary Jack Benny, the show featured him playing an exaggerated version of himself, a miserly, vain, yet somehow lovable entertainer who was always just a little too confident in his own talents. His deadpan delivery, impeccable comedic timing, and self-deprecating humor made him one of the most enduring figures in early television. Unlike traditional variety shows that relied heavily on music and guest stars, the Jack Benny Program stood out for its clever writing and long-running gags. Recurring jokes about Benny's age, perpetually 39, his extreme thriftiness, and his hilariously off-key violin playing became signature elements that audiences eagerly anticipated. Though the show often featured musical performances and celebrity guests, its real appeal lay in its satirical take on show business, with Benny frequently poking fun at Hollywood's eccentricities. Airing on Sundays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on CBS, the Jack Benny Program was a staple of 1950s television, influencing generations of comedians with its sharp wit and innovative style. Benny's unique brand of humor, combined with a stellar supporting cast, cemented the show's place in TV history. I Love Lucy. I Love Lucy was a groundbreaking sitcom that set the standard for television comedy. Starring Lucille Ball as the lovable but mischievous Lucy Ricardo and Desi Arnaz as her patient yet exasperated husband, Ricky, the show delivered a perfect blend of slapstick humor, witty dialogue, and heartfelt moments. Alongside their best friends and landlords, Fred and Ethel Mertz, played by William Frawley and Vivian Vance, the Ricardos found themselves in one hilarious misadventure after another. Season 5 of I Love Lucy kicked off with the gang still in Hollywood, where Lucy's obsession with meeting movie stars led to unforgettable comedic moments. In the season's first episode, she and Ethel attempt to steal John Wayne's footprints from Grauman's Chinese theater, resulting in classic Lucy-style chaos. After their Hollywood adventures, the Ricardos and Mertzes return to New York, but the excitement doesn't stop there. Ricky is offered the opportunity to tour Europe, and naturally, Lucy and Ethel find plenty of ways to turn their travels into comedic gold, from mishaps with luggage to cultural mix-ups. Airing on Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern on CBS, I Love Lucy was more than just a sitcom, it was a cultural phenomenon. With its sharp writing, unforgettable performances, and innovative use of multi-camera filming, the show became one of the most beloved series in television history. Black Saddle. Black Saddle was a unique entry in the Western genre, blending courtroom drama with the action-packed world of the Old West. The series followed Clay Culhane, played by Peter Breck, a former gunslinger who turned his back on violence after a life-altering tragedy. Seeking redemption, he became a lawyer, using his sharp mind instead of a six-shooter to bring justice to those in need. Set in post-Civil War New Mexico, the show offered a fresh take on the Western hero, one who relied more on legal arguments than on gunplay. However, his past as a gunfighter often complicated matters, especially with the town's lawman, Marshall Gibbs Scott, played by Russell Johnson, who later became famous as the professor on Gilligan's Island. Scott remained wary of Culhane, questioning whether a man with his history could truly change. Premiering in 1959, Black Saddle initially aired on NBC before moving to ABC for its second season. While the show had a strong lead in Breck, who would later gain greater fame on the Big Valley, it struggled to find a consistent audience and was ultimately canceled. Still, its unique premise and engaging character dynamics set it apart from many of its Western contemporaries. The Man from Black Hawk. The Man from Black Hawk was a unique twist on the traditional Western, blending crime investigation with frontier adventure. Starring Robert Rockwell as Sam Logan, the series followed an insurance investigator who roamed the country, verifying claims and uncovering fraud. Unlike the usual lawmen or outlaws of the genre, Logan was a different kind of hero, one who relied on intelligence, resourcefulness, and even disguises to solve cases rather than just a quick draw. What set The Man from Black Hawk apart was its commitment to realism. The producers dug into historical newspapers and real-life insurance claims for story inspiration, ensuring that the cases Logan tackled had a believable edge. Each episode presented a new mystery, keeping audiences engaged with a mix of suspense, action, and detective work. Despite its fresh take on the Western format, the series faced stiff competition in the crowded television landscape of the late 1950s. After just one season, The Man from Black Hawk was canceled, but it remains a fascinating example of how classic TV experimented with blending genres to create something new and engaging. You Bet Your Life. You Bet Your Life was far more than just a quiz show. It was a comedy masterpiece, thanks to the quick wit and sharp tongue of its legendary host, Groucho Marx. Premiering in the 1950s, the show put a unique spin on the traditional game show format by blending humor with trivia. While contestants competed for cash prizes by answering questions, the real attraction was Groucho's spontaneous ad-libs and razor-sharp banter. His ability to turn even the simplest conversation into a hilarious exchange kept audiences entertained week after week. One of the show's most famous gimmicks was the secret word. Before each episode, a word was chosen, and if a contestant happened to say it during their conversation, a comical toy duck, complete with Groucho-style glasses and a mustache, would descend from above, awarding them an instant $100. This quirky addition added an element of surprise and gave Groucho even more material for his legendary wisecracks. Airing on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on NBC, You Bet Your Life stood out from other quiz shows of its era by prioritizing entertainment over competition. Groucho's effortless charm and quick-thinking humor made the series a beloved staple of 1950s television, cementing its place in TV history. Who was your favorite TV star of the 1950s? Lucille Ball, James Arness, Jackie Gleason, Donna Reed? Please leave your answer in the comments below. The Ed Sullivan Show. The Ed Sullivan Show was one of the most iconic and influential variety shows in television history. Hosted by the unassuming yet legendary Ed Sullivan, the program introduced millions of viewers to a dazzling array of entertainment, from groundbreaking musical acts to awe-inspiring acrobats, magicians, comedians, and rising Hollywood stars. Sullivan had an unparalleled ability to recognize and showcase talent, making his show a launching pad for some of the biggest names in entertainment history. The show became famous for its diverse lineup, offering something for everyone. One week, audiences might see a mesmerizing opera performance. The next, they'd be treated to a rock and roll sensation. The Beatles' historic American debut on The Ed Sullivan Show in 1964 is one of the most famous moments in television, drawing a record-breaking audience and forever changing the music industry. Legendary performers like Elvis Presley, the Supremes, the Rolling Stones, and even comedians like Richard Pryor all graced Sullivan's stage, solidifying the show's reputation as a must-watch event. Airing on Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern on CBS, The Ed Sullivan Show was more than just a variety program. It was a cultural institution that shaped the entertainment landscape for over 2 decades. Walt Disney's Disneyland. Walt Disney's Disneyland was more than just a television show. It was a visionary project that helped shape the future of both entertainment and theme parks. Premiering in 1954, the anthology series was created by Walt Disney himself as a way to promote the development of Disneyland, his groundbreaking amusement park in California. Each episode was designed around one of the park's themed lands: Adventureland, which explored thrilling expeditions; Fantasyland, which showcased beloved Disney fairy tales; Frontierland, which delved into America's pioneering past; and Tomorrowland, which envisioned the future of technology and space travel. The series featured a mix of content, including animated shorts, behind-the-scenes looks at Disney productions, live-action adventures, and even sneak peeks at upcoming films. It wasn't just entertainment, it was an inside look at the magic behind Disney's creative empire. One of the most exciting aspects for viewers was getting exclusive previews of Disneyland before it opened in 1955. Airing on Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ABC, Walt Disney's Disneyland captivated audiences and cemented Walt Disney's reputation as a master showman. The show's immense popularity led to its evolution into the wonderful world of Disney, ensuring its legacy as a cornerstone of family television for decades to come. Bourbon Street Beat. Bourbon Street Beat was a stylish detective series set against the atmospheric backdrop of New Orleans' famous French Quarter. Though it aimed to capture the city's unique charm, much of the show was actually filmed in California, reportedly using the same set as a streetcar named Desire. However, to lend authenticity, select scenes were shot on location, including at the real-life Absinthe House nightclub on Bourbon Street, adding to the show's mystique. The series followed private detectives Rex Randolph, played by Richard Long, and Cal Calhoun, played by Andrew Duggan, as they tackled mysterious cases filled with intrigue, deception, and danger. Assisting them were their resourceful secretary, Melody Lee Mercer, played by Arlene Howell, and young investigator Kenny Madison, played by Van Williams. Together, they unraveled complex crimes, encountering jazz musicians, high society figures, and shadowy criminals in the lively and often unpredictable streets of New Orleans. Premiering on ABC, Bourbon Street Beat aired for just one season, but it wasn't the end for some of its characters. Rex Randolph later transitioned to 77 Sunset Strip, another popular detective series of the era, giving his character a second life in television's golden age of crime dramas. Johnny Staccato. Johnny Staccato was a unique blend of crime noir and jazz culture, starring John Cassavetes as the title character. Staccato was a jazz pianist who moonlighted as a private detective, solving cases in the smoky, beatnik-filled clubs of Greenwich Village. The show stood out for its moody, atmospheric storytelling, often backed by a dynamic jazz soundtrack that heightened the tension and style of each episode. Unlike typical detectives of the era, Staccato was a man of both intellect and action, navigating the criminal underworld while maintaining a connection to the city's thriving music scene. His investigations often took him into the dark corners of New York's artistic subcultures, where he encountered poets, musicians, and criminals alike. Cassavetes' intense performance brought a raw, realistic edge to the role, foreshadowing the naturalistic style he would later develop as a filmmaker. Premiering in 1959 on NBC, Johnny Staccato had a distinctive tone, but it struggled to find a mainstream audience. Despite critical praise and its stylish execution, the series lasted just one season. Still, it remains a cult favorite among fans of noir television, remembered for its cool jazz aesthetic and Cassavetes' charismatic presence. $64,000 question. The $64,000 question was one of the most thrilling and widely watched quiz shows of the 1950s, drawing in millions of viewers each week with its high-stakes format. Hosted by Hal March, the show challenged contestants with increasingly difficult trivia questions, with the ultimate goal of winning the grand prize, an astonishing $64,000, a life-changing sum at the time. Contestants specialized in specific categories, from history to science to popular culture, and their knowledge was put to the test in front of a captivated audience. Adding to the drama, the show was famous for its suspenseful atmosphere, complete with dramatic lighting, intense pauses, and tension-building music that heightened the stakes. Viewers eagerly followed contestants' journeys, cheering them on as they climbed the money ladder, question by question. Airing on Tuesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern on CBS, the $64,000 question became a cultural sensation, but its success was short-lived. Like several other quiz shows of the era, it became embroiled in scandal when it was revealed that some contestants had been secretly provided with answers in advance. Despite this controversy, the show remains a key part of television history, remembered for its impact on the game show genre and its role in the infamous quiz show scandals of the 1950s. Which of these classic TV shows brings back the best memories for you? Share your favorite moments. The Alaskans. The Alaskans was an adventure series set against the backdrop of the Klondike Gold Rush, following the exploits of two charming swindlers, Silky Harris, played by Roger Moore, and Reno McKee, played by Jeff York. The duo navigated the rough-and-tumble world of Boomtown, Alaska, running schemes, dodging trouble, and occasionally doing the right thing, especially when it served their interests. Dorothy Provine co-starred as Rocky Shaw, a saloon singer and occasional love interest. Though the show promised high-stakes adventure in the icy frontier, the reality behind the scenes was far less glamorous. Filmed entirely in California, the Alaskans relied on artificial snow and forced its cast to wear heavy winter coats under the blazing sun, creating miserable working conditions. Roger Moore, who later found fame as James Bond, openly criticized the series, calling it a disaster. Production challenges didn't end there. When the Writers Guild of America went on strike, the show resorted to reusing scripts from Maverick, another Warner Brothers Western. Despite its star power and adventurous premise, The Alaskans failed to find lasting success and was canceled after just one season. However, Moore's time on the show was personally significant. He reportedly fell in love with co-star Dorothy Provine during filming. Jefferson Drum. Jefferson Drum was a Western series with a unique perspective, shifting the focus away from lawmen and outlaws to a crusading newspaper editor determined to uncover the truth. Starring Jeff Richards in the title role, the show followed a fearless journalist running a frontier newspaper in the rugged West. Unlike the usual Western heroes who relied on their guns, Drum wielded his pen as a weapon for justice, exposing corruption and standing up to those who sought to suppress the truth. Each episode saw Drum investigating the hidden forces shaping his town: crooked politicians, ruthless landowners, and dangerous criminals who preferred their secrets remain buried. His relentless pursuit of justice often put him in conflict with powerful enemies who would stop at nothing to silence him. However, when persuasion and investigative skills weren't enough, Drum wasn't afraid to defend himself with a revolver. The show balanced action with thought-provoking themes about the role of journalism in shaping public opinion. At a time when Westerns were dominated by shootouts and stagecoach chases, Jefferson Drum stood out for its focus on free speech and moral integrity. Although it only lasted one season on NBC, the series left a mark as a bold, socially conscious take on the Western genre. Charlie Weaver's Hobby Lobby. Charlie Weaver's Hobby Lobby was a unique blend of celebrity interviews and lighthearted comedy, bringing a charming twist to television in the late 1950s. Inspired by Dave Ellman's long-running radio program, Hobby Lobby, 1937 to 1949, the show initially focused on well-known guests discussing their favorite pastimes. Hosted by Cliff Arquette in his beloved persona of Charlie Weaver, the series featured a range of celebrity appearances, including entertainer Jacques Carrette and burlesque star Gypsy Rose Lee. However, after just 2 months, the format shifted away from hobbies and leaned more into humor. One of the most beloved segments was Letters from Mama, in which Charlie Weaver read fictional, homespun letters from his mother in the imaginary town of Mount Ida. His warm, comedic storytelling and homespun wisdom made these readings a standout feature of the show. Though Charlie Weaver's Hobby Lobby was short-lived, Arquette's Charlie Weaver persona endured. After the show's cancellation, he became a familiar face on television, frequently appearing on talk shows and game shows, most notably as a regular panelist on Hollywood Squares. His blend of folksy charm and quick wit kept audiences entertained for years to come. Philip Marlowe. The 1959 Philip Marlowe television series brought Raymond Chandler's iconic hard-boiled detective to life, with Philip Carey stepping into the role of the sharp-witted private eye. Unlike many detective shows of the era, this adaptation had a unique approach. It presented viewers with the same clues that Marlowe uncovered, inviting them to piece together the mystery alongside him. This interactive storytelling element set the series apart, making it more than just a standard crime procedural. Set in Los Angeles, the series captured the gritty, noir-inspired world of Chandler's novels, with Marlowe navigating a city filled with shady criminals, femme fatale, and corrupt officials. Carey's portrayal of Marlowe leaned into the detective's tough, no-nonsense demeanor, but he also brought a sense of charm and intelligence to the character. Despite its intriguing format and strong lead performance, Philip Marlowe struggled to compete against The Red Skelton Show, a hugely popular comedy variety program airing at the same time. As a result, the series was canceled after just one season. While short-lived, the show remains a noteworthy attempt to bring Chandler's legendary detective to television in a fresh and engaging way. Dick Clark's World of Talent. Dick Clark's World of Talent was a short-lived variety show that showcased young performers aiming for their big break. Hosted by the legendary Dick Clark, who was already a household name thanks to American Bandstand, the show sought to capture the excitement of discovering fresh talent. It featured singers, dancers, musicians, and other entertainers, all competing for recognition in an era before modern talent competitions like American Idol or America's Got Talent. The judging panel included comedian Jack E. Leonard as a permanent judge, adding humor and personality to the critiques. Unlike later talent shows with high-stakes eliminations and dramatic tension, World of Talent had a more straightforward format, simply highlighting promising performers without intense competition. Premiering in September 1959, the series had potential, especially with Clark's star power, but it failed to capture a lasting audience. After just 13 episodes, the show was canceled, disappearing from the airwaves almost as quickly as it arrived. Despite its brief run, Dick Clark's World of Talent was an early example of the talent showcase format that would later become a staple of television entertainment. Which theme song from these classic shows is still stuck in your head today? The Betty Hutton Show. The Betty Hutton Show was a light-hearted sitcom that showcased the comedic talents of Betty Hutton, a Hollywood star known for her high-energy performances. Hutton played Goldie, a lively and kind-hearted showgirl who suddenly finds herself in an unexpected situation. She inherits a staggering $6 million, and along with it, the responsibility of raising 3 teenage children. This drastic shift from her carefree showbiz lifestyle to sudden motherhood became the core of the show's comedic and heartfelt moments. What set the Betty Hutton Show apart was Hutton's significant creative control, a rarity for actresses in the 1950s. She was deeply involved in shaping her character and the show's direction, ensuring that her signature blend of humor and warmth shined through in every episode. However, despite her star power and the unique premise, the series struggled to compete with the well-established The Donna Reed Show, a family sitcom that already had a loyal audience. After just one season, The Betty Hutton Show was canceled, marking a brief but memorable chapter in television history. While short-lived, it remains a fascinating example of a mid-century sitcom led by a strong female star determined to make her mark on the small screen. These lost treasures of the past remind us just how much everyday life has changed. From classic cars to forgotten fads, each of these memories holds a special place in history. Did we miss anything? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, check out more videos in this series. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share Who Remembers. Thanks for watching.